Hi, I'm Liz.
And I'm Rhea.
Welcome to Karma's My Bitch, a podcast about
sex,
love,
magic,
desire,
purpose,
bliss,
and how life isn't simply the stories we tell ourselves. We've spoken about how our core relationships need to be in place before we go into bliss.
Yes.
But what becomes of our relationships in bliss? Does that mean they all kind of bear the mark of bliss because we're in them? How does it work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I feel like we really, I feel like we've breezed through, you're on the path to bliss, as in you're not quite there, but you're sort of in it because you're picking up some pieces to get there, and then you're at the door, and then suddenly you're the door, you're through the door. And I was I was thinking about it the other day, and I was like, did we properly explain getting through the door? I hope. I mean, I know we talked about it.
I feel like everything else in this world, in our world at least, we can talk about it till we're blue in the face. But when you understand it, you can come back, and we've laughed about this because I do this all the time. And we've definitely said this in other episodes where I will have all the information. I will understand it on some level, and then it'll happen. And I'll be like, oh my God, Liz, I get it now in an entirely different way. And I tell you the words that basically you had written down and I'd repeat it. But now I understand it. So in a way, you can never really share everything because it's not only unique for each person in terms of how they experience it and where they are, but also it can't be understood until it's felt. That's fair. I mean, you're right. I mean, a lot of spirituality and spiritual concepts are only that until they have been experienced, because in the end, spirituality is effectively experiential. That's why experience makes normal.
Yeah.
But it's also something that I was actually thinking about this morning, which is, how do you prove any of this? Right? And I realized that and this is just my little piece, which is for every season up until 12, I was always much more logical than spiritual. Mm-hmm. But in season 12 and in this one, we're talking about magic, we're talking about bliss, we're talking about things that I understand in a way that I can't always quite explain. Mm-hmm. And so in some ways, these past 2 seasons have been my kind of coming out story. Mm-hmm. In an amazing way, because it's all the stuff I used to know as a kid that I'm now just owning in a very different way.
Yeah.
But then I asked myself, what is it that allows me to do this now? Mm-hmm. And it's not just because I'm part of a partnership that is KMB. It isn't that the books I've written or anything else. It's I've experienced it to the point where I know it to be true and I cannot believe anything else. And at that point, it becomes so much part of my fullest expression that I cannot deny it anymore.
Results are always, in some ways, the proof, in the sense that I start off one way and I now am an entirely different person. But it really is about the process itself. It's coming into your own personal empowerment and being bold enough to live as you are, as opposed to this sort of insecure, fearful person.
What this work has given me is not the tangible necessarily of I now sit on a pile of gold and live a dream life. All those things gave me the ability to create that for myself. And
it's a beautiful process to witness, and not just for yourself, but other people. The only thing that is immutable is who we are at our core. And that's what we want to get to. And by the time you get to bliss, that core has got to be solid, because you've got to build from that place. So
and that's when you get to build it. Yeah,
exactly. Because the rest doesn't matter. It just stops. You can't be concerned with that anymore. So by the time we're in bliss, those core relationships really do have to be solid, because even if the other person in that relationship isn't moving into bliss for some time, the shift doesn't become too remarkable or disruptive to our lives.
Because they're solid already. So it's
exactly.
It's basically I don't know if this is correct, but I kind of feel like it is. It's like picking, your partner picks up a new hobby. It's not really going to change your life.
Well, you might end up spending a little less time with them for, because suddenly they're
until
on
you
the
suddenly
golf course.
Yeah, exactly. Until you realize that golf is really fun and you go join them. It's basically kind of the same.
Yeah. Or you go find some other way to spend those 8 hours while they're playing 18 holes. So, yeah.
But will people be able to sense a difference, even if they're not in bliss and you are?
They may not be cognitively aware, but they're going to sense it. They're definitely going to sense that, because bliss is really transformational and altering. It's going to show up in the way in which we manifest our power when we're around them. So it's a bit like, and God, I hope it's not as annoying as this, but like a bit like when you move to another country and then you come back and suddenly like you're speaking the language a little bit. Like,
oh my God, it's like those people going, oh, I'll just have some margaritas.
Oh my God, have you never been to Barcelona? We should go to eat some tapas and some pan con tomate. It's not like when like little kids are learning a language and it's like super adorable. It's like when like you go away for like your third year of like at uni, you do your third year abroad, and then suddenly you're like dressing like you know, you come home, you go to France and you're like wearing a beret, right?
Yeah. It's like that, but obviously not as annoying, one hopes.
Exactly. One hopes, because again, it's where your power lies, and that's why again you're getting there after your whole, like after all the processing, in such a way where one of the things you've managed to hone by this time is humility.
Yes.
So
which, by the way, we were discussing
recently.
Yeah, because we were actually discussing it recently, where I was just saying that I actually feel like humility is probably one of the most key aspects of this whole journey.
Yes. I mean, I think we underestimated it. Because in karma, some people come into it a little too humbled.
Yes.
Yeah, where they're so broken down that they almost don't even believe that they're capable of the other life, right? That other reality. Yeah. So you almost have to ignore whatever bit of humbling you've had because you need to fully express to be able to break through, right? You got to come into that full empowerment. But after the ego settling that you go through, right? That sort of ego death or deathing, depending on how long it takes and how many stages you go through, you know,
usually for people.
Yeah, there could just be a lot of ego attachments that remain after the karmic undoing process in hell. But it is that process that helps you get that key bit, which is humility. So by the time you've come here, you're just going to be very aware, self-aware as to like where you stand among others, but not to the point where you're so conscientious.
You're just aware that there's a lot more going on.
One thing that you also really you get it through magic, but it's also maybe a personality thing. It's also generosity.
Go on.
It's going to be a somewhat upside down way of looking at things, but guidance likes to be super provocative and upside down. But when you're generous, their idea of generous is open-heartedness. And the more open your heart is, the more open you are to all the possible pathways. Of course, there are many, many options and possibilities. And I'm just going to acknowledge them all because I am that open.
I have skin in the game.
Yes.
As we've discussed. I have faith that will happen. But I'm humble enough, generous enough, and have enough compassion with everyone around me, and this is more kind of, I guess, more relationship focused because of also this episode, to let it just unfold the way it needs to unfold.
And I think it's helpful because I think we really do need to explore how relationships evolve as we go through these different processes. So by the time we reach bliss and we're in partnership, or we've got someone in our lives, or, I mean, you and I are partners. My God, we like see each other and talk to each other a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though we don't even live in the same country. We spend a lot of time together. And you can imagine when somebody enters bliss, how perceptible it is. Because when you're around each other this much, there's no way you're not going to notice. Because that person is suddenly in their fullest power.
It'll manifest in whichever way we express their power around them, right? So what does that mean, though?
You know how in a friendship group, some people just, I wouldn't say play a role, but maybe there are some people who are really good at one thing, like making the reservation and making the plan, because no one else can be bothered. Whatever role you kind of play in that relationship just gets like extra. Like you're the one who's like, when you're doing it, you're really on, and your ideas might be even like start to become a little bit more outlandish.
Fine.
And so you're,
but in a partnership, it's kind of all the ways.
It's all the ways.
I know we've discussed this in a previous episode this season. I know it's a 25 episode season, so it's a lot, but it was one of my favorite episodes of this season for so many reasons. But when we discussed how seeing someone's potential is what allows it to come to life, you know, because actually the ways in which sometimes, I mean, we all know me, I'm extra in the ways in which like I see that potential and I love and I all those things, and sometimes I have to stop. I'd stop myself and be like, am I being too nice, or am I being too caring, or am I being too, and I'd kind of realize that like actually this is what makes me me. Mm-hmm. And that's cool. Saying that, I started to really struggle with people who were still very much stuck in their old stories. Mm-hmm. I felt very sensitive around them where I couldn't be myself. Mm-mm. Therefore, I didn't enjoy those interactions.
No,
so the people, friends, romantic partner, all that stuff where I could be totally myself. They were heightened. They were better. They were amazing. Mm-hmm. But when I was then put into situations with someone who was drowning in their old stories and who was not really moving forward at all,
yeah,
I almost felt like I had to take a step back. And that was quite hard for me because I've always been so open with everyone, and I see everyone's potential all the time. Mm-hmm. But I started to see how actually I'd be doing them a disservice.
Yeah.
If I continued to just keep telling them their other perspectives, because just like it had to change for me.
Yeah, and it's an internal work, first, especially.
Yeah, which is what we were discussing about internal
because you can't fake vibration. To some degree, you can fake frequency.
Just for people who don't know, vibration is the one that you are and that keeps going up as you do shit.
As you shed.
The frequency can go up and down, but kind of remains on a, how the fuck do I know this?
Because we discussed this.
There we go. There's another example of when you tell me and then I forget until I understand it. And I'm like, wait a second, I know what it is.
It was such an awkward, it wasn't even an awkward conversation because things between us are not awkward, but it was a challenging one because you were like, I don't understand. And I was like, I only have so many ways to explain this, Reyes. I need you to understand.
So I get it now.
And I was like,
so
please.
Vibration is like, if you imagine who you are when you walk into the room, right? It's just who you are at all times. Yeah. And it kind of just goes up and up and up over time and you can't go down. Frequency is a thing that goes up and down depending on
your consciousness. Your frequency is reflective of your consciousness. Your vibration is reflective of, effectively, your divinity. So the more of you that is the divine, as in full divine expression, the higher your vibration.
And then how does frequency go up and down?
It doesn't go up and down starkly, but remember, it has to do with your consciousness shift. So the greater your consciousness, the higher your frequency. And ultimately, you want that vibration and that frequency to get as high and match. Now, what happens, though, is that people can fake frequency to a degree because we are by nature the divine. So we can kind of tap into that knowledge or that wisdom internally.
Our consciousness.
Yes. But because we haven't shed our karma, because we're just looking to bypass and utilize that knowledge, either that's from within or from without, we're pulling from someone else, we can definitely raise the frequency enough and fake it, which is why sometimes somebody might slip through the cracks in your life and be like, hey, present a certain way. And you might just be like, I can really connect to this person. They really seem to get it. And then 2 coffees later, you're like, oh my God, that was exhausting and hard. Also with vibration, we can have a session with a healer. We can go do a sound healing, and that will raise our vibration temporarily. As in, we're utilizing something that is not from within that will help us raise the harmonics and thus help us achieve a certain level of vibration. But unless we look to different ways to maintain it, that vibration will effectively go down because it's not really ours. It's one that we are attaching to.
All the people in my life, sometimes they look at me, they're like, this girl's a wackadoo, but I love her anyway. And I don't have to agree with her, but I accept her for who she is.
Yeah.
And that's really where I know that you have just as much of an open heart as I do, and that's enough. Because saying all of that, the one thing that got me through, there were kind of fewer surprises. Although, in my case, I would say that they were real highs because I was like, yes, I can believe myself more, right? Mm-hmm. But you are very aware of what you're creating and what you're doing. You know where you're working towards. As we were discussing at the beginning of this episode, I might not be attached to how this tiny incident plays out, but I'm quite invested in how this will all go.
Yeah.
But the one thing I've learned is that it's not fun or interesting or spontaneous, actually. Because the fun isn't necessarily in the, oh, I just got a discount for the tickets here. Or
I was just going to say, or like, I used air miles for,
Yeah, exactly. It's not, that's not the fun, because that's kind of, again, experience makes normal. The fun is really to be like, oh my God, I really am the divine. How cool. I can really do this.
That divine will. We're being able to do, like, to create from, without the help or interference from anyone else. Like, this isn't the same as, like, the sort of passing of favors, which we discussed a couple episodes ago, but just everything just being an expression of our power, and that power being expressed through our desires. Like, I will this to be, I want this to be, this is going to be my life. Mm-hmm. As I know it should be, but the shoulds that are not an expression of rules, but because this is how I want it to be.
We don't always need the kind of surprises that karma brings, right?
Oh my God. Like, it makes us not want surprises.
It's just because we're like, oh God, now I have
bad.
Yes, and this is another lesson I've got to learn, or this is another way I've got to see that I didn't see this coming, or whatever else. It's just that if there is any barrier in my way to achieving the life that I want, it needs to go now.
Yeah.
And, for a long period of time, I was a bit scared of doing that. So I played in this kind of like space where I was like, I know it's there. I know what's going to happen. I know it's going to be great, but I'm not quite ready for the commitment that requires of me because I don't fully understand what that commitment is or what that entails. And it was until I understood that actually the commitment was only to myself, my power, my light, my joy, and also all the things that had made me excited and that I could see that I was looking forward to, that I was ready to kind of like be like, okay, let's get rid of those barriers now and let's step into this new whatever it was. And it wasn't, and I think that was the thing, is that it doesn't necessarily have to be like, okay, so we're going to like get rid of all the people that are in our lives and find new people. It's more like whatever blocks there are between us, they just need to go now.
Yeah.
And yes, there were some friends and some situations where I was like, oh, actually, like, I'm not being able to be fully myself. But I'm so addicted to being my full self that actually I don't really want to be here then.
Absolutely.
And I say this being the person who, in every episode for so many years in this podcast, heard one thing, allowed my mind to believe the worst possible case scenario of that thing, and then had to go back around and realize it was actually the best possible case scenario of that thing, not the worst. Right? We did that every time. And I remember we've joked about it so many times since. Like, and I'd ask you, can I really be happy? Can I really be in love? Can I really stop waiting? Can I really live in this dream that I know is possible? And then I'd hear something and be like, no, I can't. No, I can't. Actually, the world is here to show me the opposite. And then I'd have to go all the way back around and be like, oh no, actually, that bit of hope, that bit of light, that bit of excitement, that's the bit that matters. Not the dread or the fear of what could happen. Those surprises are the ones that go, And so actually what we're talking about is the easiest and most fun, because it means that all our relationships and all the individuals in them are so much more to us. And we are so much more with them because we can show up as more. And then when you're your fullest self and they can show up as their fullest selves and you can really connect, fuck me if that's not just like, I want to be in bliss with you. Yeah. Even if you're not in bliss in the KMB sense of bliss, I am in bliss and you're here. Yeah. How amazing is that?
It's really amazing. And so that way, when we are with people who might be going different stages of whatever process they're in, if they have an inkling toward bliss or happiness, that's the bit that's going to come out. So even if our frequencies don't match and our vibration doesn't match, it's almost like if there's love, as in the light, like the shining the light, if they've attuned that enough, we've got something to work with here.
Yeah.
This friendship doesn't have to die because we're in two disparate places. We're aligned in love, which is really beautiful.
Which is why love is just so the best.
What's interesting is that, so like when we're in magic, we can create opportunities for joy and others get to share in that, right? Joy is just more joy and we get to share, which is like, that's just a really magnificent scenario that we've created. But Interestingly, relationships in bliss are less about joy, which might sound a bit boring to you, but they're about shared power. So we're bringing forth the fullest potential of everyone in their lives, which means a person has to be in touch with that potential. Again, that light.
But no, I don't find that boring. I find that really, because if you imagine that your greatest expression is doing all the things that are within your purpose, you get to write, you get to sing, you get to play, you get to do every minute of every day is stuff that is utterly fulfilling. And the people in your life help you achieve that, or at least experience that with you and inspire you for more, or whatever it is. Like, isn't that, you have people who are just totally fulfilled, sharing their fulfillment. Like, how fucking, that's actually really, really cool.
Yeah.
It is, if it's more exciting, it's more exhilarating. Because I feel it makes it makes for interesting bonds and ties.
It does.
And it allows us to keep moving forward whilst also deepening our relationships.
Yeah, hence the prosperity that we discussed. It's really what allows us just for those expansive types of relationships that we have not really known, because in karma, everyone's kind of an object in our play. Like, they're just kind of these like static figures that kind of shift around as we're like learning and fucking up and growing, and as we are to them. And so every time we transcend something and we're moving along, those ties and those bonds that we get to carry with us because we're still committed, we still care. By the time we get to bliss and they're still in our lives, we've really got to consider, damn, we've got something here.
This episode is brought to you by Karma Magic Bliss. For more information, resources, and links to our books, check out our website, karmamagicbliss.com, and Karma Magic Bliss across all socials.
And if you liked what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review.